Over the past couple of episodes of this show, I've been joined by author Andrea Waltz, who has been encouraging us to change our definition of failure and actually go for a no. Because we know the more no's we get, it also means we get more yeses, too. Today, she's going to take us one step further and teach us how to track those no's and use that information to refine our message so we get even more yeses. I'm joined today by Andrea Waltz again here on the One Simple Thing podcast. Stay with me.
It's time to build a better business
by building a better you.
This is One Simple Thing.
Welcome to another episode of the One Simple Thing podcast. I'm Dave Kirby. Glad you're listening today. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. If you have shared this podcast with others, if you've left us a rating and review on iTunes, if you've commented, emailed, or you just listen every day, I sure appreciate it. Thanks for the emails. Thanks for letting me know. And if you want to rate us or review us on iTunes, I'd sure appreciate that as well. Simple to do. Just go to onesimplethingonline.com. At the top menu, you'll see Support the Show. And that's where you'll find a link to iTunes where you can leave us a rating review. Also, we just went live yesterday with a couple of new items on the website. We've got a show archive that will help you find past episodes. And we've also got a resources page that links back to some of the resources that we've offered over the weeks and months of this program, some of the great books from authors and other people that have been on the show. So check those out as well. Archives and resources now live at onesimplethingonline.com. Andrea Waltz joining me today. She's author of the best-selling book, Go for No. Yes is the destination. No is how you get there. And speaking of great books, you can find hers at the website, too. Just look on the right-hand side of the page. There's a banner ad for Andrea Waltz. Again, that's at onesimplethingonline.com. Andrea, welcome back. Thank you for joining me here again today on the One Simple Thing podcast.
Happy to be here with you, Dave.
I am enjoying these conversations, and you're motivating me to go hear no more often.
Very good.
It's the book is called Go for No, and we've talked about this a few times, but it's kind of counterintuitive. Because most of us have lived our whole lives thinking that yes was the ultimate goal, and it really is, right? You're not saying that no is the destination. You're saying yes is the destination, but we can't get there without going through no, right?
Exactly. And sometimes people get really concerned. They say, well, you're teaching me to go for no, and I'm going to be thinking about no's, and all I'm going to get are no's, no's, no's. And I say, no, wait a minute. I'm not telling you to wish and hope and pray to hear no. And that if somebody calls you up and says, hey, I'm ready, I want to do business with you, that you then just hang up the phone and say, no, that was too easy. It's not about that at all, but it's about really seeing that connection between the two, and that, yes, increasing your no's, intentionally increasing your failure rate, and doing that, yes, is the destination, but no is how you get there.
Does the sting ever leave hearing the word no, or that kind of that pain of feeling like a failure at that moment?
Well, I will tell you from personal experience, the answer is yes. For me, and also for a lot of people that I've talked to over the years and gotten feedback from. But personally, when Richard told me the Go for No story, which we talked about in a previous segment, and he taught that to me, and I said, wow, I thought I was a superstar salesperson. And I realized in that moment that I didn't really like to hear no, and I never wanted to look pushy. I didn't want to look aggressive. I wanted people to like me. And so I never went for the no. You know, I always got my safe yes and was happy with that, and then moved on. And so as a result, I was really living in a go for yes world, and I did take no very personally. It was like, oh, they don't like me. I did something wrong. Oh, I'm a failure. And over the years of my reprogramming and teaching this over and over and over, it's kind of been a godsend for me because, the more you teach something, right, the better you learn it. So it's been very helpful. And that's what we tell everybody that kind of comes into contact with this strategy is you hear it and you go like, oh, it makes sense, but you've got to continuously practice and remind yourself so that eventually the emotional part and that sting, like you say, can reduce and go away eventually.
Just listening to you talk, I'm thinking about, even myself, because I would tend to be a guy that would be afraid of hearing the word no and not liking that feeling of failure. But did you find in your own life that, when you were a kind of a go for yes person, that you kind of shied away from making potential contacts where you felt like the possibility of a no was higher than others? We probably kind of judge who we're even going to make a presentation to based on whether, is it a 50-50 shot of a no or, whatever.
Absolutely. And yes, the answer is yes. And really it comes down to that perfectionism. And for me, even, I always say I'm a pathological people pleaser. So I had a big connection to what I thought I was doing in terms of serving and selling and seeing them kind of as opposites and not thinking of them as a package deal. And so I always equated those no's with maybe doing something wrong or not having the person completely like me. And when we kind of get beyond that, one of the things that Richard and I talk about a lot that has to do with this, like you said, this sting, is that we take these no's so personally, and it kind of is about who we are as people. One of the things that we teach is you really have to separate out who you are as an individual and the quote failure or the quote no, because it's not a reflection on who you are. It's really a reflection of the other person's decision, their judgments, their whatever. It really has nothing to do with you.
I think probably most of us would default to, well, I'm a bad salesperson, or I made a terrible presentation or whatever, and it may or may not have anything to do with that.
Exactly. And in fact, we say the worst presentation has the chance to create magic with some people. If you just catch somebody on the right day and they're ready and you just do awful and you go, wow, I can't believe they bought from me with that horrible presentation. And then sometimes you feel like you have the perfect product service. You've got the perfect customer. They want it. They need it. They have the money. And then they say no. And you go, how is that possible? So we don't know. And I think the thing is to remember that we control what we can control. We can control our own behavior. So it's very important to, when we get those no's, not to berate ourselves with messages like, oh, wow, I'm horrible. I'm not going to make it. This is not going the right way. And to really, as cliche as it might sound, remember the mental model of failure and success. You're going to encounter a lot of no's. You're getting better each time. And the yes is out there. You just have to keep going.
Let's talk about something you call a person's individual failure quotient. That would be the number of times that you're willing to fail before succeeding. On this episode, we want to talk a little bit about tracking our progress. Is that kind of where we start with figuring out what our failure quotient is?
Yeah. In fact, we have a fun assessment on our website where people can take a 20-question quiz and get their FQ, their failure quotient. And that really has to do, Dave, with where you're coming from in relationship to your beliefs about failure and success. We find a lot of people who hear what we're talking about, and they have, from living in a go for yes world, almost every philosophy they have is in direct opposite from what we're teaching. We teach people to increase their no's. We teach people to fail more, and everybody's talking about getting more yeses and succeeding more. And so when you reconfigure that model, the failure quotient becomes kind of a fun thing. But the whole point of it, ultimately, what we remind people is that successful people, the movers and shakers in every business and industry, don't have it easy. They look like they did, but they hear no a lot, they heard no a lot, and they failed a lot. We just don't see that. And so we remind people they need to increase and work on their failure quotient, work on adopting this failure model and failing more and failing faster so that they can get to the success they're looking for.
Well, you talk about tracking our no's. Do we literally set up, do you have people that actually set up like a no chart or whatever? It's like, I'm going to get 5 no's today, and they're literally clicking them off in a notebook or whatever every day?
Yes, very much so. So we talked in a previous segment about creating a no awareness and setting no goals. And so when you do those things, you very much want to be counting your no's and tracking and seeing where you are and where your progress is. Richard and I did this. When we first started our business, we had a no goal of like 100 no's in a month. So we would be tracking those things, and it was hard to get to 100 oftentimes, but we'd track and see how we were doing. And when our results weren't great, we could always look back on the calendar and see a month where we were not hitting our no goal, So tracking those is really important so that you can see how you're doing, and so you can celebrate those no's as you go along.
Is there a process that we go? So say I hear a no. Do I want to kind of deconstruct that no and try and figure out why I got the no? I mean, at the end of the day, do I want to sit down and kind of reflect back on that day and the no's I got and say, okay, why did they say no? And what can I do to turn that no into a yes?
Yes, that is a great idea. And we talked about this a little bit briefly. People say sometimes they think, oh, we're just suggesting you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Well, no, that would be, right, the definition of insanity.
Right.
So you do want to sit down and say, and I think sometimes a little individual, looking at things individually is helpful, but patterns especially. So when you start upping your quantity and you're having more presentations, you're talking to more people, and you start seeing patterns, then you can start saying, okay, I've got a problem with getting, past the gatekeeper and getting an appointment with someone. Or I have this great conversation with everyone, and as soon as I tell them the price, I just fall apart and I can't close the deal or what have you. And so I think looking at the why is really important. But the great thing is when you get that no, the very first thing that we teach is react positively. And I know that sounds like impossible to do sometimes, but react positively. And this is the key to go for no. I think more than anything is in that moment when you get that no, you have a decision. You could be upset, be discouraged, be disappointed, or you can value it and say, this is just the beginning with this person. This no doesn't mean never. I'm going to figure out how to turn this no into a yes. It may not be at this very second, in this very moment, but eventually this no is going to turn into a yes. And so you can go down that path later on.
Yeah, and it goes back to, I mentioned it on a previous episode, a salesman that I heard one time. He said, I know it's going to take me 5 no's to get to a yes. So I celebrate every no because I know it's one step closer to that next yes.
Exactly. And here's this interesting statistic. 44% of salespeople give up after they get one no. They get the no and they never go back to that person. And the problem, that's a huge problem with this whole idea of no is they get the no, they don't analyze it. And if you can analyze it and say, okay, what is this person's issue? Is it price? Is it timing? For a lot of people, I think it's just fear of change. Someone doesn't want they don't want this new product. They don't want this new service. They're scared to make a change. They're scared to hire a coach. They know they should, but they're just scared to do it because people are fearful of change. So the idea is when you get that no in that moment, you've got to say, okay, great. I'm going to figure out what to do with this. I'm going to tell this person that I'm going to follow up with them in 6 weeks to see if anything has changed. Now that no is no longer just a hard no. It's a no for now.
Yeah. Good advice. So what's our action step today when we're thinking about implementing this go for no strategy in our lives?
Our action step is to count your no's, but to celebrate them. Make sure that when you hit that no goal, you celebrate. That will make it fun. That will keep you encouraged. The idea if you set a no goal for 10 for the weekend, you actually hit that, that's when you need to take yourself out for an ice cream.
That is a total mindset shift. And if you don't know what a no goal is, I encourage you to go back and listen to the previous episode of this podcast because we kind of get into that. So, Andrea, again, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We're going to talk a little bit about persistence. I think we want to get into some of that follow-up advice, too, in the next episode. So I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. Me too.
Andrea Waltz, again, my guest today. Really enjoying the conversation with her. You will find all this information and more in her book. It's called Go for No. Yes is the destination. No is how you get there. And I know Andrea would love to be able to teach you more. If you're in sales, if you're in a position where you've got to be reaching out to others and trying to sell yourself or your product or whatever, then this is just an invaluable book because it teaches you not to be afraid of a no. In fact, to embrace a no, set goals for your no's, knowing that the more no's you get, the more yeses you're going to get too. It's, I think, a great training and a great philosophy to have. So check out the book. Again, it's called Go for No, and there's a banner on the website right on the right-hand side of the page when you go to onesimplething.online.com. That's it for today. I'm Dave Kirby. Thank you for listening. I'll check you next time. I'm going to have Andrea back here again on the One Simple Thing podcast.